Hey, this is Confessions of a Youth Pastor, and I was called a nigger in church. So, many of you know that I am a worship leader, a youth pastor. I've been doing ministry for a long time, and I hope in this video that you hear my heart about the problem in our country dealing with racism, even within the church. All right, let's start back when I was in middle school, 8th grade, and I was getting ready to prepare for the International Baccalaureate program for high schoolers. And the teacher that was over that gave specific instructions of how to apply. Now, mind you, I had amazing grades. Straight A's, maybe a B or two, and I was the only black student, the only male that was applying for the program. And so we turned in our applications, and they were supposed to be mailed off or whatever, just from that process from the school. And the other girls received their acceptance letters. I never got a denial letter. I didn't hear anything back. And I began to ask questions like, hey, where's my application? I got a lot of beat around the bush answers. So my parents stepped in, and they started looking and kind of doing research of what happened with my application. So turned to find out that my application was never turned in, but it was ripped up and shredded and never turned in. Why? Because that teacher thought that I wasn't smart enough for that program and just didn't want me to be in competition with the other students at the new school. Now, mind you, I was in 8th grade. So when I found out that one of my teachers did this to me, I was crushed. I was hurt, like shocked, like what? How? And why would you do this to an 8th grader? Why would you do this to one of your students that you were helping to mold and teach, and not just the actual subject lessons, but actual life skills? And I trusted this teacher, and now I find out that my application was ripped up. So could we say that this teacher was racist? Could we say that there was racial insensitivities? So these are the issues that's lying around in our country and our schools. Mind you, I went to a Christian school as well. And so it wasn't like it was a thing that's like, oh, that happened in the public. No, this happened within a Christian setting. When you realize that an opportunity that you wanted to achieve or reach for was taken away because of your skin color. Now, would people actually fess up and say things like, well, I did this because you're black? That would take a lot of guts and a lot of honesty. This is just only one incident. Okay, let's fast forward to my college years at Southeastern University. As you can imagine, just a bunch of college students hanging out, black, Hispanic. We were at Starbucks, just hanging out, drinking coffee, eating ice lemon pound cake, So I was taking one of my friends home. At that time, I drove a 1992 Buick Century. That was my white baby. I was taking him home. His parents had just moved to a new subdivision in the area, and it was late. This is what we do as college students. You hang out late. And as I was pulling out of the subdivision and turning onto one of the roads to head back to campus, I saw a police car following me. I'm like, okay, where did this cop come from? So eventually the cop turned the lights on. I'm like, okay, and I had my other friend in the passenger seat. I was like, okay, well, what happened? Like, all right, hey, officer, how are you? You were speeding. You're doing 45 and a 35. I'm like, okay, my bad. I'm sorry. It was in the middle of the night. It was very late. There was no traffic. He proceeds to ask, for my license and registration, and I gave him all of that. He then proceeds to ask my friend in the passenger seat for his license. Yes, he was black. Then he proceeds to ask me if I had any drugs in my car. He calls for additional officers to assist him, and they search my car for drugs. Those of you that have known me over the years, you've known my character, you've known who I've grown to be, even back then, you know that would be it's insane to be able to think like, oh, I'm gonna have drugs in my car. Not that anybody is perfect, but once we said, oh, we are students at Southeastern University, oh, okay, I'm gonna let you guys get back to campus, and he let us go. Now, this is no dig toward the police department as a whole, and we all know that. There's good and bad in every form, in every department, every different type of ethnicity, every part of industry. We are very well aware of that. But currently, right now, we're having an issue with a lot of bad cops making a lot of noise, harassing and even killing black men and black women. So in that moment, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, I realized that I was pulled over because, one, I was black, two, I was driving my 92 Buick in a new neighborhood, so I looked suspicious. That's only one incident. It gets better. Another incident, we were driving, my wife was driving, she was speeding, and we were headed home. I was in the back seat with our little girl. Cop pulls us over, you know, they grab her license. I roll my window down just to let the cop know that I was in the back seat. The baby was crying, and the officer proceeded to ask me for my license. I was not the driver. I was in the back seat. Okay, so let's go back a couple years. I was leading worship at a predominantly white church. Presence of God was in the room, real strong, and you know, y'all know how I am when I'm leading worship, very passionate about it. And I saw, you know, a gentleman, white male, 50s-ish. He started making a commotion in the back of the sanctuary and pointing his finger at, you know, toward the stage, and to the point where the ushers escorted him out of the sanctuary. He never returned back to service. So one of the black ushers pulled me aside after the service and told me that the man was causing a commotion because he was upset that the church had a black guy on the stage saying, why I got that nigga on that stage singing in church. Maybe you haven't, quote unquote, said or called me or a black person nigger, but maybe your actions have. Maybe the racial insensitivities that happens constantly, even within the church, assuming that just because I'm a pastor that I'm a Republican, or that, oh yeah, well, you know, you voted for Trump, right? Oh, well, this is what the Republicans stand for. What? Now, my voting preference, who I choose to vote for is my business. But it's not fair for someone on the other side of the tracks to just automatically assume, well, this is how you should vote. This is how you should feel. This is how you should, in our confinement, constantly. If I had a nickel for every time that I was racially discriminated against, for any undertone racial slurs, you know, just the undertone, the bigotry, the white privilege statements that have been said to me, I could have built the wall that Trump is trying to build. This is a real thing. Racism is real. And maybe you're not out there wearing a KKK outfit, but check the content of your heart. If the statement that I'm saying is Black Lives Matter, you know what? Since y'all got a problem with Black Lives Matter, black skin matters. That's what we're saying. Is that people that look like me we are having an issue with how the systemic racism has been embedded even within the church. This is Confessions of a Youth Pastor, and I was called a nigger in church.